it's Amber. What would you do with billions of dollars? Buy houses, fancy cars, entire islands? From Bruce Wayne to Batman to Richie Rich, here are the richest cartoon characters who are really living the dream. Number 10. Tony Stark from Iron Man. Every superhero has an origin story. Tony Stark, the philanthropist and billionaire who we all know and love from the Avengers, came into wealth through Stark Industries, which his father Howard Stark bought from business tycoon Jose Protacio Rizal. Stark Industries dealt in advanced weapons and defense technologies. Forbes claimed that the overall sales from the company amounted to $20.3 billion. While during his teenage years, Tony showed no interest in Stark Industries. When his father was killed in an accident caused by Justin Hammer, he was forced to step up to the plate and take the mantle of chairman. He was later kidnapped and forced to build an invincible armor for the Hand and Mandarin. However, he used the suit against them to escape and later used it to fight crime, thus becoming Iron Man. That wasn't the end of the income for Stark Industries, however, as Stark continued his weapon trade and also provided hovercrafts for S.H.I.E.L.D., among other things. Overall, Tony is estimated to be worth $12.4 billion. Number 9. Bruce Wayne from Batman. It isn't an origin story if there isn't a parental or family death, whether you're from DC or Marvel. It seems that the Wayne family were never entirely without wealth, dating back to colonial times when Bruce's predecessors came to Gotham City from Europe and began their own industrial empire. On the other side of the family tree, Bruce's mother Martha also came from a wealthy background, so she just added to the Waynes' huge piggy bank. Wayne Enterprises strived to be a green company, meaning that they were doing everything they could to be as environmentally friendly as possible. Does that mean that the Batmobile has eco-friendly gas emissions? Who knows, but all of the wealth driven from the company meant that Bruce could develop everything he needed to be the shadowed vigilante in the night. Overall, Bruce is estimated to be worth $9.2 billion, which means he is a little lower on the food chain than Tony Stark. That's gotta hurt. Number 8. Mr. C. Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons. Honestly, who doesn't love to hate Mr. Burns and his evil plot hands and snivelling voice? Whatever he's doing, he must be doing something right to land himself on our list of the richest. Unlike Bruce, he is definitely not eco-friendly, as he runs the notorious nuclear power plant that Homer Simpson works at. But how did he acquire enough money to be able to own one? Well, in his youth, he deserted his family to leave with a billionaire who was the owner of an atom mill in Shelbyville. Inspired by what he saw, he attended college to learn the ins and outs of science and business. After graduating, he took over management of the power plant which his grandfather had founded. Mr. Burns is our richest character yet, with a net worth of $16.8 billion. If it weren't for the fact that he was over 100 years old, perhaps he could take over being Iron Man. And now for one of your childhood favorites, but first, be sure to subscribe. Number 7. Richie Rich. This poor little rich boy is the youngest on our list, and he is so rich that his middle name is a $sign. Unlike Mr. Burns, however, Richie doesn't use his wealth for anything villainous and is portrayed to be kind in the cartoon adaptations of the comic. His parents were the source of his wealth, and he could buy everything he wanted. He had 2 of everything that he owned. His father was an industrialist who earned enough money for the rich family to have an expansive mansion to live in and an extravagant lifestyle. Little Richie Rich is seriously rich with a net worth of $24.7 billion. Number 6. Charles Xavier from X-Men. Professor Charles Xavier. Not only is he super cool, but he's also super rich. Like most of the people on our list, he was born into money that his father had from his career as a nuclear scientist. We all know that he later invested this money into the Xavier Institute and the X-Men. However, what makes Charles stand out the most from the others on our list is that he doesn't hold on to the money or earn any more during his narrative, which probably comes from the number of times that his mansion is destroyed due to the fights in X-Men. Let's just hope he has insurance. He doesn't earn much income aside from the student tuition fees, which, let's be real, does he ever get them paid to him properly? He also isn't the richest in this comic universe. Emma Frost, also known as White Queen, has a hefty inheritance from her parents and also has her own lucrative business ventures, which bring in an income of their own. There's also hints to the Wolverine having some money, as he founded the Jean Grey School. However, if he wants to hop universes into this movie universe, it seems that Xavier loses all of his money before the events of Logan, as he and Logan are forced to live in a rundown shack where they can barely make ends meet to pay for Xavier's medicines. Before all of this happened, however, Charles had a net worth of $3.5 billion, which in this list is a pretty small fry. Number 5. Mom from Futurama. Carol Miller, or Mom, is the chief executive and shareholder of Mom Corp, an industrial company which is the source for the majority of Earth's robots. However, these robots come with a small catch. Buried within them is a device, which means that Mom is completely in charge of them and they have to do whatever she tells them to. Is she worse than Mr. Burns? We'll leave you to decide. To the public, she ensures that she has a sweet and motherly demeanor, but to those who would stand in her way of being as successful as possible, there is a much darker side to her. The conglomerate Mom Corp itself has an income of an unthinkable $291.8 billion. But individually, Carol has a net worth of $15.7 billion. She only holds 99.7% of the shares after all. Number 4. Mr. KRABS from SpongeBob SquarePants. Are you ready, kids? Money Mad Mr. KRABS is next on our list and is also one of our more interesting characters. He is obsessed with money. Throughout the series, we frequently see him holding money or kissing it or crying over it. But he is very frugal and hates to spend any of it, even on SpongeBob and Squidward's wages. Which is probably how he comes to have his wealth, as you wouldn't think in a small town that he would make that much, especially as the Krusty Krab never seems to be overly busy. Mr. KRABS keeps a safe full of money alongside his secret recipe for the Krabby Patty in the back of the restaurant. In a later series, he earns his millionth dollar, so he's definitely not up there with our billionaires, but he's certainly not a pauper either. His net worth is estimated to be $5 million. Number 3. OZYMANDIAS from WATCHMEN. Adrian Alexander Veidt, also known as Ozymandias, is a retired member of the WATCHMEN team, and you've guessed it, he's a billionaire. His family had substantial wealth, but Veidt didn't have any of the characteristics of some of the more villainous on our list. In fact, he was very humble and chose to hide his superior intelligence from his school by doing just enough to have average grades. Similarly to Bruce Wayne, he inherited his riches when his wealthy German parents died. However, he did something which none of our characters have so far. He donated it all to charity. He later regained his fortune when he revealed his true identity after retiring and used the marketing to earn money and turn his intelligence to business. This soon turned into an empire which had a large income to only increase his net worth even more. Richie Rich has still remained unbeaten, however, as Veidt's net worth is $7 billion. Number 2. Carter PEWTERSCHMIDT from Family Guy. Having a father-in-law that doesn't like you is bad enough, but Peter Griffin has a father-in-law that doesn't like him and is also incredibly rich. Like everything else in Family Guy, Carter PEWTERSCHMIDT, Lois's father, is a very stereotypical rich conservative. He owns PEWTERSCHMIDT Industries. Side note, what is it with all these characters and naming their companies after themselves? Do their egos fit into the headquarters? Who knows? Anyway, he also owns US Steel. Because of this, he's developed a real sense of holier-than-thou syndrome and thinks Lois is far too good for the simple Joe Peter. He hates him so much that he even offered him $1 million if he called off the wedding to Lois. There's one point within the series, however, where he loses all of his fortune and is forced to live the penniless life. This creates a momentary bond between him and his son-in-law, as Peter tries to show him that money isn't all there is to life. This is short-lived, however, as Carter soon earns back his money and goes back to his usual snobby self. His net worth is $2.5 billion. Number 1. KUZCO from Emperor's New Groove. Finally, we have a favorite llama. Voiced by the charismatic David Spade, KUZCO is one of the most arrogant and selfish protagonists that Disney has dared to show. The movie was inspired by the tale The Emperor's New Clothes, but they turned it on its head, as Disney often does, by turning the spoiled emperor into a llama to teach him a lesson in humility and kindness. The young emperor is seen at the beginning of the movie trying to buy an entire village so that he could build his holiday home there called KUZCOtopia, complete with a water slide. While this may not seem too awful considering the lavish things that some of our previous characters have bought, it's definitely one of the most selfish, as this would mean that an entire village, including sidekick Pasha's family, would have to move away to make room for it. Not that KUZCO cares, as all he says is boo-hoo. His llama experience soon teaches him that having what you want isn't all that is important. He still buys KUZCOtopia, but he builds it on the hill opposite Pasha's village and upgrades Pasha's home to make room for his new children. While there's no direct evidence for what KUZCO's net worth would be, Incan emperors were known to have hoards of gold, like the lost treasure of Atahualpa, which has an entire room full of a ransom sum of gold and silver. Thanks for watching! Who is your favorite billionaire cartoon character? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. See you next time on Peachy Planet. Bye!